In the last episode, you remember, we got all the major components we need, or at least I hope so, to get the motor going and the wheels turning. We can see the big battery now, but clearly the brains of the car are still unhappy about something and they won't allow the high voltage battery to make contact. So Matt has suggested I should connect every module I possibly can, even if I think they're not the cause of our disconnect problem, and even if we're not planning on using them. The reason is, the diagnostic tools tell you about problems with modules it can find, but it doesn't tell you the potential problems with modules that it can't see at all. And we need to find what the problem is. So, it's getting even busier in here. Power steering pump, brake vacuum switch. We've got the cooling pumps, one for the battery, one for the motor. We do need the brake booster pump. So there's our brake booster pump with a vacuum line here, measuring vacuum there. Not closed off yet, I just want to hear that it operates. We've also added things which I'm sure we don't need. This is the cabin heater. Now that takes 400 volts, but I'm not going to connect that because this chassis is not earthed. I don't know where it goes, but I don't want to risk having high voltage on that. So we don't connect that. However, we will connect the control circuitry for it, which is here. All right, let me show you how we start it up. I hear a lot of little satisfying click noises. I can hear the water pump at the back. One of them's just having a little spin. The lights are on, so we'll turn them off. And the dash slowly comes alive. As you can see, neutral. Now try and lock the car. Still can't do it because the car's not powered down. Try and power the car down. It tried to, but it said no, you can't do that yet because you haven't got the brakes on. We can't connect the rear parking brake, so we're going to force it by holding it in for 10 seconds. And it shuts down, 5 seconds. Now we should be able to lock the car. It notionally locked it then. There are no doors on the car, so you didn't hear all the door locks click. But the car is now locked. Put the key over there. Try and start the car. No good. Well, we know the immobiliser worked. That's excellent. I broke into the car. Now we should be okay. Yeah. Okay, that's encouraging. No key, get inside, try and start, and it goes, you're a bad person. Unfortunately, we do get a number of errors popping up. So there we go, we're up. High voltage battery shut off, as you can see. Why doesn't the high voltage battery connect? Because of this interlock loop. The VCU sends a request, and it looks at this loop and says, yes I can or no I can't. For it to drive, this red thing has to have continuity all the way around. So the cabin heater needs to talk to the air conditioning compressor over there, needs to talk to the battery heater, which is there, needs to talk to the battery itself, needs to talk to the inverter, needs to talk to the motor, and needs the tamper switch here on this PDU to all be in agreement. And if they are, then we can say thumbs up, we can connect the high voltage, but we can't. There's something still amiss. So the next step's to read the codes. I thought I'll do my best to get around that interlock problem and do the best I can before we run the codes so that we minimise the amount of things I'm going to have to look at. But we're still stuck with quite a few important ones.
We'll get to the bottom of it. You know, it's just one little an on that should be an off. Or
I thought I'd address that interlock, but clearly I haven't. We can power it up, but the VCU, the vehicle control unit, is refusing to connect the high voltage battery to give us power to turn the motor. High voltage battery shut off. Oh. Now I've already spent a few days on it and I can tell you I'm finding it tricky. Let me start by explaining a little how a modern car works. In an old car, it's relatively simple. It's like a small company where everybody talks to everybody else in the same room. Mr. Ignition Lock talks to Mr. Battery, who holds hands with Mr. Starter Motor, and Mrs. Ignition Coil, and before you know it, you're burbling down the road. Everything is pretty much directly wired to each other. The 40-year-old Porsche wiring, complicated though it looks, is actually pretty straightforward. But in a modern car, oh my God, it's like an enormous company. There are about 20 main modules in the car. Think of them as teams of employees with their own areas of responsibility. And they communicate not directly, but by messaging each other's heads of department with requests and responses. So for example, when you push the start button, it doesn't just directly connect volts to something. At the centre of the car, the VCU, as its name suggests, it's the vehicle control unit. It says, hey, I just got a message from the start module saying some idiot pushed the start button. So it asks questions of all the other modules to see if they're happy with this idea. To security, the body control guy, brakes, power steering, radar, even the HR department. And if any of these teams say no, it says no, no power for you. We're not going anywhere. Now the HR department in this case is the crash module, which is called the SDM, the module that manages all the airbags and the seat pretensioners and things like that. And that happens to know that on the 16th of September last year at 9:53 a.m, this vehicle had a crash which caused some of the frontal airbags to deploy. And it never forgets that. This car has been crashed, so the answer is no. Now you'd normally fix this by installing a new SDM module, which doesn't have any crash history. But we found that you can bypass human resources simply by unplugging them. Now we have a sign on the door of the HR department that says, sorry, we're closed, but as far as we're concerned, whatever you request, it's a yes from us. Do whatever you like. So that's where we're at. Everyone's happy so far, except the VCU. It says, before I'll even think about asking the battery to come online, I'll need to check anything in the car that uses high voltage to make sure they're present and in ship shape so nobody's in for a shock. And it does this by asking these 7 separate high voltage modules to hold hands if they're happy. Any breaks in the chain? And the answer will be no. This is the PEB, the power electronics box, that contains the inverter and the DC to DC converter. We've got the motor, the EDU, the electronic drive unit. Now sometimes to get my head around things I do these hand drawings, and that's what I've done here. The pink line here is the daisy chain that needs to be connected. My problem is not all these modules are going to be in the electric 928, and that's why right now it's saying no. Even if the VCU is happy, it'll finally get around to asking the BMS to bring the battery online. And the BMS is the biggest Nazi of all. It just says yes or no, but behind the scenes it's checking everything. Are the cells in balance? How are the temperatures? But if it does say yes, then you get your volts. How do I know all this? Well, I'm very grateful to MG because they have very good technical documentation, and a lot of it. Yes, there are some typos and small mistakes in translation from Chinese, but it's pretty good. The wiring diagram is 100 pages long, and that's just to the module level. The Procedures and Functions Manual, 251 pages. And the Service Diagnostics Manual that explains all the error messages, 1,646 pages. You get the idea, it's complicated. So tracking down problems isn't just a matter of looking at a wiring diagram. You have to understand the process flow, how the messaging works, and how the modules interact. As a complete newbie to EVs, without this documentation, I would have been royally screwed. But we're not out of the woods yet. Something is still preventing this car from powering up and telling the battery to come online. Matt is still confident, but until we get the wheels turning, I am feeling quite anxious and I'm uncertain about my whole approach of using the MG. The other bad news is that these manuals seem to be slightly different version from my MG ZS, and that's potentially a big problem. Now unfortunately the colour coding for this cable, this is connector BY422 cabin heater. The colour codes there do not match the circuit diagram, which is very annoying.
One eternity later.
I reckon that might even do it. I'll get Matt over here and a fire extinguisher and we'll give it a run. Let me explain what I've done.
Yep.
Jumped straight through from here, these 2 wires here,
Yep.
which are these 2 guys here. I've just put them together to bypass the tamper switch. And I've run it straight through, ignored him that we're not using, ignored the air conditioning compressor we're not using, and for the moment ignoring the battery heater, which is here, which is these 2 here. So I've jumped straight from these 2 to those 2, here to there. I'm sure the problem's in one of these 2, not giving us continuity. So, are you ready? What have we got to do? I've got to put the battery on. The battery's on. Open car. Press button. Power's up. We might... Vacuum pump.
That's good.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's trying to do vacuum?
Yep.
What if I cover... Oh, okay, it stopped. What if I put my finger there? No high voltage, disconnect. And, oh, mate, there's a chance. Oh, lights off, so I can see. All right, I'm game.
Yeah.
You ready? Drive. stand away from the wheels.
Yeah, they're off the ground. Ooh, we got movement.
Oh shit, did it?
It moved, yeah.
You do it, I want to see.
Yeah.
Accelerator pedal. Mate.
It moved. Oh, what is this? It works.
How much of...
One.
I'm so happy. That was the thing I was most worried about. Smooth as butter. We're on the way home, guys. Your axles are as smooth as butter. Look at that. Matt, I can't believe it. That is...
Yeah.
That, I know you had every confidence it was going to work,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I just
There
thought
we
something will defeat us for months and months and months. Are you happy?
Oh, mate, that's great. You know, it's essentially, you know, there's so much to do, but just to get to this, you go, the rat's nest of wiring is functional.
It
you know?
means
So,
everything we've done
yeah,
was right.
that's it.
All the high voltage connections.
Yeah.
Let's get a couple of Kiro tins. We'll sit on them and let's go.
That's right. Go for a drive. Go up to Macca's. You can't do it. Do Macca's drive-through. Yeah, it sounds good, doesn't it?
When I
First
was-
sound that electric, the whine, you know.
It's so quiet. It's absolutely whisper quiet.
Isn't it? Yeah. The dash where it's saying efficiency and charge is moving.
Oh yeah? Let's have a look. Throttle, just a little. Oh, look at that. Power. I don't want to push my luck by doing too
Yeah.
much, but
That's very exciting, isn't it?
man, you are the man. You really are.
Yep.
We'll do a fresh code read.
Yep.
Clear all the codes. See what it says.
It's funny now. It's got 14.5 volts, so it's actually charging.
Oh, it's
12-volt
charging the battery.
as well.
Interesting how the water pumps, the battery pump and the motor pump aren't just going mad trying to pump coolant. They've realised that they haven't got coolant.
Yeah. It's got so it's electronic vacuum pump failure
Oh yeah.
because
okay.
it's still building pressure and it's not. It knows it's meant to.
Yeah.
Once it reaches it, so but
Yeah.
it's funny. Even though it knows the vacuum pump's failed, it's letting us drive.
Yeah.
That shouldn't work.
Yeah. Well,
So-
as we've seen before, this car's got a very optimistic approach to driving.
Well, if there's anything to do with braking or vacuum pump, you'd think disconnect the battery.
No.
So you're driving with no assistance.
I wonder if it goes backwards. Reverse.
Backwards, yeah.
You're on your way. Good car. Smart mechanic.
No.
Smart mechanic. I can't remember when I was last this excited about something mechanical. Running a good marathon, sure, that's exhilarating, but this is the justification of our approach, isn't it? It's working. We've got lots of codes coming up. Nearly done. And we're done. Report. Matty, there's only one thing left to try.
Oh, yeah, see if it charges.
But now I've forced it to power down, saying where car's parked. Key's still nearby. We should be able to charge now. Plug in the charger. AC charging. Please put gear shifter to park. Aha, that might be it. Connected but not charging. So when you put the car in park, it doesn't just go into park. Yep. It's a request to the parking brake system to go into park, and then it sends a message back saying I'm in park. Gotcha. And then it puts park on the display. Sure. But without that, it probably won't charge.
That's all right. That's easy. We'll get around it. You know.
Yeah. Or did
Even if we mount the parking motors, because it's going to want to see, and we put a piece of steel in there replicating the brake pads, and and they just go, you know what I mean?
Yep. Successful day, and that's the end of the episode. We've climbed Everest, and now we're on the long run back down to base camp.
Big milestone, I think.
Absolutely.
I think if the project's going to fail, it's from where we are now to the start. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
you go, oh, we've never seen any success, any green light.
Yeah.
Now we've seen it spin.
We've
know
got
what I mean?
everything. We've got a car
So we
that
know it's going to run. We just need to actually make the final touches.
next step will be actually pulling out a lot of this stuff that I've put in for no reason, like the air conditioning compressor, cabin heater.
Well, the beautiful thing is now we can actually disconnect that and go, oh, it still runs. It's not needed.
Yep.
Do you know? And
Yep.
go, well, we can terminate whatever wiring. And actually, that'd be awesome if we could put those electric calipers on the back, because the park brake mechanism's gone, and it actually modernises it even more.
Yeah, you've got a proper...
Porsche should never imagine someone's fitting an electric park brake to our car.
That would be...
That'd be crazy.
That'd be really good.
It would, yeah.
All right.
So,
Show us your fingernails. Just the viewers want to see how dirty your hands are today.
they're clean. Look at them.
Mate, they're pristine. They're ready to
Spotless.
shake hands with the king. I'm going to buy a beer on the way home and have a beer.
That's it.
Next time I see you, I'm going to bring you a beer too.
Perfect.
All right, now I've settled down a bit, let's look ahead. It's 6 months since we started, and today's proof of concept means there's so much work that Matt and I now have the confidence to push ahead with. What have we got? In terms of fabricating and mounting items, we can now find a home for lots of things. The brake accumulator, the coolant pumps, radiators, power steering pump, the accelerator pedal and the brake switch gear, and of course the electronic park brake that Matt was just talking about. And of course proper mounts for all the modules that are just lying around. So lots of fabrication work for Matt to do. Then there's the loom, of course. Routing it out of the way, there'll be lengthening, shortening, trimming, terminating the unnecessary bits. Not just the loom either, a whole massive tidy up and paint of the interior. Electrically, there's still a lot to do. Apart from chasing down all these fault codes, the car needs to know its speed, and right now we don't have that. The simplest solution would be to just use a cheap GPS space and speedo. But that doesn't comply with legislation, and it doesn't talk to the VCU. So the KERS regen system would not work, and we need regen braking, so that's no good. Matt can either find a way to refit the wheel speed sensors, or we can do some clever CAN bus programming. Either way, should be fun. And then of course there's the big task, repackaging the batteries after doing another weight balance exercise. I do want the car to have slightly more weight over the back axle than the front, so designing, building, certifying, testing and mounting the battery pack, that's going to be great. Now pretty soon I'll need to get a certifying engineer involved again to ensure we're still on the right path and I haven't missed anything super critical. Remember, I want this car registered as my daily driver. And all that's before we get to the fun stuff like refitting the Porsche dash, trimming, upholstery, painting, making basket case into a proper 9 to 8 again. It'll be fun, and I can't wait. See you next time.